Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast, where in this edition, of course, we'll be talking about Tottenham's win against Brighton here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs 2, Brighton 1. Heung-min Son with a 10th minute screamer. Brighton equalised through Dunk in the 34th minute. Brighton had 2 goals chalked off. Both went to VAR. Both managers sent off, Stellini and De Zerbi. Harry Kane got Tottenham's winner in the 79th minute. Pochettino's name was being sung around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, as well as Levy out. Tottenham Hotspur remain 5th in the Premier League, 53 points from 30 matches. We have got 8 games to go in this campaign. I've got 3 very special guests to talk about today's game. Back with us, Paralympic gold medalist Richard Whitehead, MBE. Rich, how are you?
I'm good now that was over. Oh my goodness, the last 3 games have been so stressful. But no, it's great to be back on the show. I'm looking forward to chatting through that 96 minutes of torture.
Only the last 3 games, Rich. Wow. Rich, before we introduce the other guest, you've got a very special event coming up very soon. Tell us all about it.
Yes, so last year I had a really successful running event in Nottingham, Run with Rich, so running with me in Nottingham, and it's for my foundation. So if you're around Nottingham on the 18th of June, Chris was meant to come last year, but he chickened out because he was training for London Marathon, I believe. So this year, Chris, there's a seat there for you. I know how much you love running after last year. I think you've still got sore legs, haven't you?
Yeah, they are. Very.
but everybody, if you're around Nottingham on the 18th, definitely come down.
Yes, please do support Richard and everything he does. Does wonderful charity work. Also back with us is Ollie Gamp, of course, sports journalist with the Daily Mail. Ollie, how are you?
Very, very good, thank you. Despite Tottenham doing the best to increase my pressure levels throughout the day, loving that. But yeah, apart from that, all good. Lovely to be back here with you, Chris.
Well, thank you for coming. We've also got Luke David, the host of Park Lane Podcast. Luke, you're joining us for the very first time. Pleasure to have you here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to be on and, just coming last after these 2 guests. It's a bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? But hopefully I can, I can just build that back up for you by the end.
You've got this, Luke.
Well, Luke, let's start the show with you. Give me the final whistle has just gone here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Give me your thoughts. How on earth did Tottenham get the 3 points today? I'm absolutely delighted we've got them. But when you look at the chances that Brighton had in that game, 2 goals chalked off, both went to VAR. How on earth did Spurs win that game today?
Your guess is as good as mine, to be honest, mate. You know, it's laughable that we ended up winning that game, and it was a crucial. As crazy as it sounds, go seasons gone by. Talk about Spurs versus Brighton. You wouldn't say that it was a must-win game for us, but seeing how many games in hand they have over us at the moment. For us to be able to win that today, it was a huge, huge result. But yeah, how on earth, Brighton fans will be absolutely livid with what happened. And, I think that the 2 goals they had disallowed were rightly disallowed, in my opinion, from what I saw from the replays and everything else. They both looked like handballs. But then, the penalty decision towards the end was crazy. I've no idea how they don't get that. But then there's been lots of decisions in the game. Earlier on in the game, I think it was McAllister. There was a bit of a stamp. Lewis Dunk did everything he possibly could in that game to wind every single Spurs player up. Trampled on Romero's foot in start to one of the free kicks. It was crazy, crazy game. But look, I can only sit at the positives and say that it's a massive, massive win, and I'm delighted for it because I didn't predict it today at all.
Rich, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the game today.
Yeah, the first half was a strange half, really. I think we pressed better. We pressed better initially, and when I was watching the game, I just saw the problems that we've had all season. Retaining the ball, really poor. Like we didn't. The amount of times that after the second ball we lost it, I think Højbjerg and Skippy needed more support in that central midfield. We got bossed in midfield by Brighton. They clearly have a lot more energy, a lot more desire about getting that ball back and using the ball correctly. Obviously, the crowd was getting on the players back when we were playing the ball backwards. But I felt the first half, we gave them too much of the ball. After a short period of time of we actually were pressing the ball. And I think that was after Sonny scored. So after the 10th minute, we seemed to really kind of sit back like we have done. And they had far too many shots in that first half. Hugo made a couple of great saves and kept us in the game. But we were poor. Like, there's no way we should have won that game today. Brighton fans that are watching this or watch the game today or match the day later, they'll wonder how they didn't get 3 points, never mind a point. It was, and also what I found is there was players that were pressing individually, but as a team, we never did anything consistently. So we never consistently did anything. So the messages weren't getting out there. I thought Perisic, apart from a couple of crosses, looked very leggy today. I didn't enjoy it at all. The last 3 or 4 games, or the last 3 or 4 games, I've not enjoyed at all. And today's game, like Luke, I didn't predict a win at all. I thought if we'd have come away with a draw today and something to build off, we'd have done well. But a lucky win. And it was great to see all the other fans in the stadium singing for Pochettino for sure. Because you know what my thoughts are there, Chris.
Well, we've had it at recent away games, and interestingly, a lot of people said it'd be interesting to see if it happens at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It did today a couple of times. Ollie, let's get your thoughts on the game before we talk about Pochettino.
Yeah, my thoughts are, I come across as a kind of moody, but my thoughts are it's a win, feels like a defeat. I think we massively got away with one. When you look at the fact that we had 2 disallowed goals, Brighton had 2 disallowed goals, and then they get a Stonewall penalty, in my opinion, and turn down. There's a kind of sour feeling. Obviously, I'm glad we got the win. It was important. I think so, which makes the point that Brighton have a couple of games in hand, and they're not actually far away from us. So it was a really important win, but it's just kind of a mess. You've got both managers getting sent off. It feels like we always give teams a chance. We go 1-0 up, we're in goal from Sonny. Goal from Dunk is abysmal defending. I'm sorry, guys, but he's completely, just absolutely nobody's on it. It was like it just ghosted in. No one was even watching him. We just don't have any discipline. I mean, all that criticism from Conte, he shouldn't have said it, but he was absolutely bang on. He should have told the players that. I'm sure he did, but he should have told the media that. But everything he said was right. They have no heart. They have no fight. They have no spirit. They got no organization. They don't listen to instructions. But yeah, so we go back in front. Great goal. Kane always seems like he's bailing us out. But then I think they should get the penalty at the end, and I think we should have the same feeling, which is disappointment because we've struggled throughout the game. But Brighton are a very good team, so it wasn't we weren't thinking we were going to trounce them because they're very, very good. But we just always seem to make it hard for ourselves, and Conte goes, but it's the same kind of feeling of just labouring through games, just making it tough, sitting back. It's pretty disappointing, which is weird because we just won a game, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just doesn't matter how we do it, we just get the win. But I kind of worry for us, Chris, because if you look at our fixtures, we got Bournemouth next. We should smash them. Newcastle away, absolutely massive. I mean, that's kind of like a top 4 playoff game. That's been massive, and then United in Liverpool. So that run will define whether we get top 4. I'm a bit concerned, to be honest.
Ollie, in fairness, though, today was a massive game. No matter how we've won it. We've got the 3 points today. It's a massive game. Massive 3 points today. As a Spurs fan, how have you felt in the last couple of weeks, particularly with Antonio Conte going, Stellini staying, which seems a very odd choice because I've said in the past few weeks that with Conte going, wouldn't it have been better bringing in a manager where perhaps it's like a former player or a former manager, someone who we can all relate to as fans, someone we can all get behind, because it doesn't seem that different under Christian Stellini. And of course, we're going for a Champions League spot. I know a lot of people will be shouting, saying we've got no chance of Champions League. But if you grind results out like you did today, we do have a chance. But what have you made of the managerial decision to keep on Stellini?
Not happy with it, to be honest. I was shocked to hear that Stellini was staying. I think if you're going to kill the snake, you need to cut off the head of the snake. And we still have the rest of the body of the snake, if I'm going to continue making this weird snake analogy. But yeah, I mean, whenever you've ever seen a manager be sacked and the rest of his team stay, it's just you go out with the captain. The captain vacates the ship, you go out with him. So it's bizarre. And the only thing I can think of is that it's to do with money. Because I know if we sacked Conte and everybody, I think he gets 4 million. Whereas if his team stays until the summer, then they just go out and roll out into the sunset. So I think it was probably not wanting to pay a hell of a lot of compensation to Conte and his staff, and then having to pay for a new manager to come in now. And I think it becomes a bit pricey. I would have rather had Mason. And I know people say, well, Mason doesn't know what he's doing, but I think it would have just given us a lift. He would have played attacking football. We're still seeing the same three at the back, the same sit back tactics. It's almost like Conte's still in charge, and he's just phoning up Stellini before the game, saying, "Right, do this." Like he very well could be their best mates, and that was his number 2. So it just feels like nothing's changed, and the same toxicity is there. Like you see Stellini having a pop as De Zerbi before kickoff, and then they both get sent off. There's still this ill feeling. Like we shouldn't have Pochettino chants in the stands. Like if you want Pochettino, go get him. But there's still this unresolved feeling. I think if we wanted Pochettino, we should have gone to get him. There's lots of unresolved things, and it's very, very Tottenham. But yeah, I agree. I would have made Mason the main manager. I think he knows enough about the club. He did well enough last time he got the job. Would he have got top 4? I don't know. But I think we all would have just liked to have seen the team return to that freedom and that attacking style that we love to see. So I would have either got Poch back, or if that was impossible financially, I would have just given it to Mason. But Stellini, I don't think anyone really has a real connection with Stellini, especially now Conte's gone.
I've got to say, even walking to the stadium today, going into the stadium, and the first 10, 20, even 30 minutes, very, very quiet. The atmosphere was pretty dead. Luke, let's come to you, because as I said at the start, twice the Spurs fans sung today Mauricio Pochettino's name. Are you surprised that they're singing Pochettino's name? Do you want him back if you had the choice?
So I'm kind of surprised that a lot of the fans are singing his name. I thought the best part of this was when Stellini had been sent off, and they were what we saw on the TV, or I saw on the TV, was they were arguing down the tunnel. And as he walks down the tunnel, that's when the Spurs fans started singing Pochettino's name. And kind of going back onto what Ollie said about Stellini is that I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the sacking or the mutual consent, mutual agreement of the termination of his contract, however you want to call it, was all agreed through the board, and that effectively he is still in charge, but just through another human being as such. I think that if Stellini wanted to become his own manager and wanted to step up and step away from Antonio Conte and become a first-team coach, manager, whichever way you want to call it, he would do things differently. And he would step up and say, this is my time. Because in reality, he would have a shot at becoming the Spurs boss if he did a good job. I have no doubt about it. I don't think he's good enough, but I believe that he could do if he decided to, be his own man and be his own person. But, I remember, I will go on to Pochettino, sorry, but I remember when we scored. And as we scored, I saw, and we set up again, I saw Højbjerg point at everybody across the midfield, Danjuma and Son, and basically say to them, sit back. Like, we'll kind of see out the game from here. And I just thought that was such a strange mentality and such a strange thing to just say, okay, we're winning now. Let's just all sit back in a bank of 5 and 4 and then try and see out the game. In terms of Pochettino, to be honest with you, Chris, I've said on my channel since probably November time that I always saw Antonio Conte leaving in the summer, and I always saw that it was Spurs' plan to come back and bring back Mauricio Pochettino. Now, Ollie might be right, in the sense of if they were going to do it, why didn't they do it when they got rid of Conte? But it's probably to do with the financial aspect in terms of getting rid of his entire team. Will he come back? I'm still not 100% sure, but I want to stick with my guns and I want to stick with what I thought a long time ago. And so I think we'll see Mauricio Pochettino back at Spurs.
I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever, Luke, that Pochettino would come back if he was asked. But I think that is the problem at the moment. The club are not asking the question. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it just relates to, first of all, the ability for them to maybe be able to bring him in now. Would he want to work with Antonio Conte's backroom staff? We know how many people he brought with him when he came to Spurs. So I think that maybe that's one of the reasons. The other reason could be potentially because Daniel Levy doesn't want to admit his failures from, those years ago when he did sack him. All of the good work that Pochettino did up until the point in which there was a small and slight demise. From that, Daniel Levy acted very quickly and saw that Jose Mourinho was available and said, do you know what? I'm going to make this call and I'm going to bring in Jose Mourinho. And I believe he brought him in because he didn't want Arsenal to bring him in, because he came in before Arteta went to Arsenal, if I remember rightly. And that's why I believe they brought him in, because they were both on the lookout for a top quality manager. Now, with this, new appointment that we've seen come in the last couple of days at Spurs, would that mean that they could bring Pochettino back? And it could be I think it's Scott Munn, isn't it? I think if it could then be his decision, and it wouldn't be Daniel Levy's decision, which would mean that actually he would save face in terms of having to admit his failures. That's maybe a way that it might go.
We'll come on to talk about Scott Munn later on in the podcast. Rich, I know you're a big Mauricio Pochettino fan. What would you say to the Spurs fans that are not so keen about a return for Pochettino at Tottenham?
Yeah, and I'm looking down the comments as well, and there is a lot of fans that saying obviously Pochettino never won anything with Spurs, and what has he won since? And what did Pochettino do for the club? How did he take the style of football he wanted, bringing the players through? What did he do? He took us to a Champions League final. The finishes that we had, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the league, the buzz around the club, is completely different. And then the biggest mistake the club has made in the last 20 years is not backing Pochettino when you're in that position. When you're in that position and then having the 18 months when we didn't sign a player has been the biggest mistake the club has made. And you can look at the position we're at that time. We'd obviously come back from the Champions League final with that disappointment. At that stage, it was, if you're going to keep Pochettino, because he could have gone, and some of the other players could as well, but the club kept this manager but didn't back him. He is a manager that loves the club, loves the fans, loves to be part of a team like Spurs. He's been to other teams since. It's not gone too well at PSG. I think because his heart is still within the club. Fans, we need to get behind somebody that wants to be here, that's got a clear plan. And the next manager, if that is Pochettino, needs to come in and it needs to revolutionise this team. I've said over the last 12, 18 months through Mourinho and all that crap, where that was just a stopgap. He was not interested in managing Spurs at all. He's just interested in the bravado of being a manager of a top team. And for me, Pochettino coming back would be a great fit. My little girl wants to say hello. Say hello, Zara. She's saying, why is Daddy speaking in a loud voice? It's because it's about Spurs, that's why. Pochettino, for me, wasn't back to that point, and that's a massive mistake. I think bringing him back, yes, it is a gamble, going back to the club for the second time, but I think the connection is the real big thing. And you're definitely right, Chris, around these last 8 to 9 games, the club should have got somebody in fresh, because the team at the moment, we need to get rid of 10 or 11 players because they're not top 40 players at all. Andrew's coming now. Daddy daycare day.
The thing is, Rick, do you think that the board will listen to the fans? Because when you've got your home fans, pretty much the whole stadium singing Pochettino's name, that means the majority of the fan base want him to return. Do you think they're going to listen?
Well, hopefully, but has Levy historically? No, he's done what Levy wants to do. Levy is somebody that kind of has his own kind of real vision around what the club looks like, and that's mostly around making as much money as possible. Trophies, is that a real kind of driving force for him? Clearly not, because in the last 20 years, what have we won? And somebody that is a professional athlete, and it's all about those 1%. It's all about getting on that podium and making sure it's top of the podium. That's what really frustrates me, is that you've got a businessman there that's all about making money. Well, how about make a team that's enables us to get in those positions like we have done, but then take advantage of them, get in those finals, win them. Stop messing around with some of the bullshit decisions made in the past. Come on.
Ollie, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11. Of course, an hour before kickoff, the team lineup come out. It was exactly the same as the team that drew 1-1 at Everton on Monday evening. Lloris in goal, the back three of Romero, Dyer and Langley, the wing backs Perisic and Porro. In midfield, Højbjerg and Skip, the front three of Kulusevski, Kane and Son. Subs today, Forster, Austin, Tanganga, Sanchez, Sarr, Devine, Mundell, Danjuma and Richarlison. When you saw that team lineup come out, Ollie, were you surprised that there were no changes to the system yet again?
I wasn't surprised, because the team seems to sort of pick itself at the moment. The only difference is, do you play Richarlison or do you play Kulusevski? And there's no chance of playing Danjuma, because that man has done something to somebody at the club. He just never gets a game. So I think the only thing is, who do you play up front? And despite Kulusevski not playing very well at all recently, he gets the nod. I don't think he played very well today at all, Kulusevski. But yeah, I mean, I maybe would have switched it up. I mean, I would just give Danjuma a go, because I'm a big fan of Danjuma's, and I don't really know what he's done. I mean, is it that he's not training well? I know Rich agrees. Is it that he's not training well? Is it he's pissed somebody off? I don't know. But he didn't, Conte didn't like him. So he clearly doesn't like him. Just what a waste of a loan. I mean, he's a good player. I've interviewed Danjuma before, and he was a really exciting talent, and he's just been wasted. So it's a real shame. But no, I don't think I would have changed the team much. The only other things is, do you play Sarr instead of Skip? And Skippy's doing a decent job at the moment. No, I think owing to injuries, Basuma without Bentancur, the team in that 3-4-3 kind of just picks itself. So unless you change the formation, the team kind of picks itself. But no, it's just kind of crazy. We've spent, was it 150 million this season? And you still kind of look at that team and you just think, wow, there's so much we need to do. We need that creative midfield presence. You look at the bench and you see Alfie Devine, you see Mundell, I don't even know who that is. And you see Tanganga and Sanchez, and you just think, wow, this team really needs to upgrade, man, because we're just holes all over the team that we need to fill. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get that sorted this summer.
Romain Mundell, very good attacking player. I watch him a lot in the under-21s.
Is he? I'm sure he's good on the bench, but we need people we can call upon and people who can make a difference. I'm sure he'll be a great player one day.
Ollie, when you talk about formations, 8 Premier League games to go. Of course, we are chasing a Champions League spot or a Europa League spot, which is more realistic. Do you see that Stellini could and will change the formation in these remaining 8 games?
No, I think Leopard doesn't change their spots, and Stellini / Conte do not like to not play 3 at the back. I'm desperate to see us play 4 at the back, Chris. I mean, I just want to change. I just want to see. I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day. I feel like I wake up and it's like, beep, beep, 6 a.m. Here we go. Spurs are playing again. It's the same team. It's the same formation. It's the same. We're struggling through games. We nick a win, or we lose 1-0, or we draw 0-0, and everybody gets annoyed. It's just the same thing. But no, I don't foresee him changing formation. I mean, has he or Conte played 4 at the back all season? I don't think he has. It's not going to change. They think their way works. They think it's their way or the highway. The whole team, in terms of the backroom staff, is so unadaptable and unwilling to change. So, it's just
the reason I asked that question, Ollie, is because, of course, you've got Ryan Mason there. You said earlier you would like to have seen Ryan Mason take charge until the end of the season. Of course, he's done it before a couple of years ago when Jose Mourinho was sacked. How much say do you think that Ryan Mason's got? Because, of course, he finished in the dugout in the technical area at the end of the game.
I don't think he's got much say, I'll be honest. We all saw that video of him on the touchline where he was like shrugging his shoulders, like looking at Kane, saying like, "What's going on?" Like, I think he's basically the kind of manager to put his arm around the players and have a little chat with them, get them up for the game. He's the link between the team and the staff. I don't think he's got much say. I think he's barking orders on behalf of Stellini, but I think it's Stellini. What Stellini says goes. Because if Mason was in charge, I know we all saw when he took charge after Mourinho. We played 2 up front sometimes. We played 4-2-3-1. We attack teams because that's the Tottenham way. Mason knows the Tottenham way, and that's what I said. Give it Mason because he might not be tactically astute as Stellini and Conte, but he is a Tottenham boy. He knows what the fans want. He knows the players very, very well. He played in the team. He's done his coaching badges. So I just thought it was just worth giving him a go. And if Stellini gets the top 4 by playing this terrible style, 3 at the back every week, then great, and we can shake his hand and say thanks very much and goodbye. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to finish in the top 4. I don't think we're good enough. I think Newcastle have been insane this season, and I think if they finished in the top 4, we'd say well done, well played, because they've been great. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, Newcastle, of course, won again today. Luke, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11. Hugo Lloris, of course, has played 2 games this week. He was out injured for a number of weeks. Fraser Forster, of course, played in goal, replacing him. But he's played a couple of games this week. What did you make of his performance today and, of course, at Everton on Monday evening? Is it the right decision to bring him back?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Fraser Forster did well, in his time in goal. But I think, as a management team, if you decide to continue with Fraser Forster and he performs like he performed in the first game, I think it was against Leicester, where he was slow, very laboured to get down to save the ball. He did. His performances kind of grew and grew into that Fraser Forster that we know. But I think as a management team, if you decide to not put in your World Cup winning goalkeeper and we lose, then the blame is going to be on them. So I think that they had to and had no other choice but to put Hugo Lloris in goal. I still don't understand why we decide to always play the ball back to Hugo Lloris, to his feet, because he's atrocious with the ball at his feet. And, why we then still decide to split the centre-backs to get him to pass the ball out. It's all a bit strange, with that aspect of it. But, in terms of Lloris starting in goal, I don't think you could look elsewhere.
Look, let's stay with you. Let's talk about the game incidents. After 6 minutes, it was cleared off the line. Matoma had a shot. It was cleared off the line. We got a let off there. 10 minutes gone. Of course, Heung-min Son put us 1-0 up. An assist by Perisic. But I'll tell you what, I was so pleased to see Heung-min Son's strike go in, because that was like the son of old, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially as well, I think that was his 100th goal in the Premier League. And I'm going to get these stats wrong here, but I think he's the first Asian player to score 100 Premier League goals as well. So, massive to him as well. And what a finish as well. That was the kind of finish that you expect from previous seasons from a fit, firing Heung-min Son, to be able to get the ball, shift it, and then bend it into the far corner. I thought it was a sensational finish. And, the poor performance after that should never take away from that goal and that moment for Heung-min Son, because, everything that he has done, those 100 goals that he has scored, I think that he's been an amazing player from us. And I still think he can be under the right management team.
Look, why do you think that Heung-min Son has struggled this season when we know that he can produce goods like that?
I think it's the the tactics, the man management. I really don't like Conte, Stellini, and the rest of the staff, to be quite honest. I think that, a lot of fans praised them last season from, getting us top 4. Like, that's great, well done. But if we look at Pochettino, he got us top 4 5 seasons in a row, so I don't think that angle from an elite manager that Antonio Conte claims to be, and people claim him to be, I think that he's been stifled a little bit in terms of how he can perform. I also think there's a little bit of confidence lapse as well. I think that how do you go from getting Golden Boot winning season the season before and then come into it this season? But if we look at Heung-min Son from seasons gone by, he was never the person that scored 28 goals a season. He was always a guy that came in, didn't score for 2 or 3 games, and then scored again. So he would always, kind of hit those 15 Premier League goals a season. So I think it's just a multitude of those parts. I think a happy Heung-min Son playing in a happy, cohesive team plays a lot better than what we're seeing at the moment.
Can I comment on that, Chris? I think there's 3 reasons. 3 reasons why Sonny isn't the player that he was last season. First, teams are playing him differently. So they're pressing him a lot earlier, so they're not letting him able to turn on the ball. The second one is style of play. He's not enabling this fast break that we've had. And the third one, and the most important one, which I've said for probably about the last 6 months, is that when Sonny had that eye socket injury, which obviously is a head/brain injury, he has not recovered from that. He clearly hasn't recovered. When the ball's at his feet, he moves. You look at how he moved last season, how he was shifting the ball, completely different than this season. There's times, even today, where, yes, we know Sonny has in the past held on the ball too long, but he's got his feet he's not knowing where his feet are in comparison with the ball. His head's been down at the ball, not up, where Sonny's so much better when he's running with the ball, when his head's up, shifting that ball from left to right. So for me, one of the main reasons is that I don't know whether it's mismanagement of his injury from when he had that eye socket injury, or he's just not had time to recover and then move back into the team.
Rich, after 16 minutes, there was good link-up play between Heung-min Son, Kulusevski and Harry Kane. It eventually finished with Harry Kane firing over the bar, but it was a good piece of football from Spurs that we haven't seen too much of this season. What did you make of Kulusevski today?
I'm going, obviously, with the commentary as well, when he came off, that they were saying that he's had quite a good game. Again, it's just like, I think I expect a little bit more from him. Bursting down that wing is great, but we want him to cut inside. We want him to. He's not the player at the moment that he was previously, where he'd cut inside and get that shot off. He just really hasn't done that. I think when you're lacking in confidence, you're holding onto the ball, or decision makings that you're making the wrong decision. Where I think Kulusevski before was making those chances for himself and the rest of his team. I think it was an average performance. It wasn't it wasn't outstanding. When he did come off and Danjuma came on, I thought that was great. And in the comments, somebody said that obviously that was when Mason was in charge. And again, that might be something for the future, him having a little bit more of an impact on those substitutions. But like obviously Ollie and Luke, I think it's just going to be same old same. But from the 16th minute, I think that's when it was going downhill, and we just sat back. We sat further and further back, trying to hold on to the lead, which obviously wasn't going to happen.
I think it's fair to say, though, Rich, that Heung-min Son and Kulusevski have struggled this season. You bring a player like Danjuma in. He got 12, 13 minutes today. Why is someone like Danjuma not getting a start? In particular, when Stellini said in the press conference a couple of days ago that he deserved game time. Well,
yeah,
why is he doing it?
Yeah, for sure. And as a Spurs fan, you worry that the players that are training that are not in the first 11 just aren't good enough, because they're not getting any game time at all. And obviously, when we think about some of the players that we've got on the bench, like Sanchez, etc., there's a reason why. There's a reason why because they're just not. They aren't good enough. But Danjuma, you look at his show reels that he's doing for training. He looks like he's putting in the work in the gym. A player like him needs to have game time. Needs to have that confidence within that 90 minutes to show the fans what is actually what we obviously got him in for. Obviously, we've only seen that in the cup against Fulham, and that's it. I think he deserves a start. Richarlison had got all these kind of opportunities to play, not really taking advantage of those. Showed a little bit of prowess, but not really taking advantage. And obviously, as a striker in those positions, you're judged on goals, and he's not produced in the league at the moment. So Danjuma, especially while Richarlison was injured, I was expecting him to get at least one start. Yeah. Especially. So we've had 2 really poor draws, and then today we've got the same team as the last 2 games. It's ridiculous. I just don't what is that? I'd love to know the logic behind that. If they're saying, "Oh, these are our best 11," and nobody's anywhere near them, I don't see it. I don't see it at all.
Ollie, can I ask you the same question about Danjuma? Because of course he came in the January transfer window. And we haven't even spoke about Richarlison as well. Hasn't got a Premier League goal for us so far this season as yet, since joining from Everton in the summer. And Son and Kulusevski have really struggled. Harry Kane keeps delivering the goods, as of course he did again today. But Danjuma, why is he not getting any game time, in your opinion?
I think it's a mix of things. I think on paper, if you have Kulusevski, Kane and Son, you are thinking they are 3 very, very good forwards who could realistically produce a bit of magic as long as they're on the pitch. And even if they're having a bad moment, we've seen Son can pull out something out of the bag like he did today, an incredible goal. And Kane is obviously undroppable. And then it comes down to Kulusevski, Richarlison and Danjuma. And I think the hierarchy is Kulusevski, then Richarlison, then Danjuma. That doesn't explain why he's hardly had any minutes off the bench. I mean, he's just not had time to get going. We've seen, he put on against Preston in his first game and he scores, so he can clearly do something. And I've been watching him for a long time, and he is a goal scorer. He's a game changer, and he's got a bit of a personality about him. He told me when I interviewed him, I think it was a couple of years ago, he told me he modelled his game on Ronaldo. He's a really, really good player. The only thing I can think of is that he's not impressed in training. I think we all say free Danjuma, but they watch him in training. If he was good, you have to say, I believe he should have a chance. But our coaches want us to win games, and if they felt that he could influence that, they would play him. I do think that as well. So that it might be a case of attitude, something going on behind the scenes, not pressing in training. I do think he needs more minutes. If you're going to sign someone on loan, give him a chance, and because he's had bits and pieces to work with. I mean, hardly anything today. I think before today it was, I don't know how many, a few games. He's had that run of games and the minutes to show what he can really do. And I think it's a real shame. Because I think he'll be like another Carlos Vinicius who just sort of quietly leaves out the back door, and it's a shame. I think we are still fighting for top 4, so it's really important that we have the best front 3 possible. But regardless of that, our front 3 aren't mobilised. They're not given the chances to score. They're not given the creative setup to attack teams. So I think either way, even if he starts, we're not going to give him the best setup possible to show what he's got. So I think you're better off on the bench on out, because no one's apart from Kane. I think, by the way, the fact that Harry Kane is doing the business, he's got double. He's on 20 more, whatever he's on. I mean, it's incredible that he's managed that despite how negative we've been and how much we've sat back. And Sonny, you were talking, Rich, about his eye injury. I agree. I think he hasn't come back from that. I think he's probably been affected. Sonny is quite an emotional guy, I think, and he needs an arm around the shoulder, and he really had that with Poch. And I think he maybe even had that with Mourinho. But Conte is like a really cold guy, And I think he kind of just fed off. I mean, Conte's been going through the range of emotions with all the deaths of his coaches and his friends. And I think, Sonny just needs that lift. I think he needs the man management. And yeah, I think it's a mix of confidence and a mix of the injury, and it's just not. Sometimes it just happens. I mean, he's got, I think, 7 goals and 4 assists. I mean, that's not terrible. It's not. I think we were all comparing him to last season. I think he could still end. If he takes the momentum of today, he could finish the season with a good amount of goals. But yeah, with Danjuma, I think it's just not worked out, and it's a shame because I really would have liked to see him. I think he could have been a real fan favourite if he had a run of games.
Well, for anyone who follows Danjuma on Instagram, you'll probably know that he does a lot of extra training sessions at Hotspur Way and posts it quite a lot of the time as well. And even after today's game, Heung-min Son looked very disappointed, like Spurs had lost the game today. Luke, let's come to you. In the 22nd minute, Mitoma, we thought, equalised for Brighton. It went to VAR. It was disallowed. That was a clear and obvious one, was it? Handball?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was. But I think the bit that I want to kind of get on with that was the Christian Romero slight push on Mitoma is the part in which means that his body is moving forward and he ends up... I don't believe if he didn't get that push from Romero, his arm wouldn't have ended up touching the ball. So I think that was very clever. And also after that, I watched Romero absolutely berate Eric Dyer and some other players for just the inability to clear the ball, because I think it was Eric Dyer's clearance that led to, or poor clearance that led to the ball that came through to Mitoma. So it was nice to see that. And kind of jumping really quickly, sorry, Chris, back onto Danjuma. The one part I really liked from him today was, first of all, his run, which took away 2 Brighton defenders, which allowed the space for Højbjerg, to play the ball to Harry Kane. I thought was really, really good. And also, it's the second time I've seen him do this for Spurs. The first one was against Preston, and then the second one was again today, was watching him dictate other players how and where to be on the pitch. And I think it's really, really clever from him. And I think it's something that how the coaches aren't seeing that, about him, his ability to be able to say, you should be here, I should be there, and kind of orchestrate where players should be. And that's the kind of player we need. So I agree with Ollie. I think that he should get a lot more game time.
Luke, we had quite a dodgy couple of minutes after that incident, because in the 26th minute, McAllister shot, Lloris with a great save round the post to his right-hand side. In the same minute, they hit the post from a shot from Caicedo. How are you feeling at that point?
I'm just feeling as numb to it as I always am now, to be honest, Chris. It's one of those things where I'm just used to it now. Our inability to transition from defensive positions into attacking positions is woeful. I think at that moment it was Højbjerg that had the ball taken off him for the Caicedo shot, and then he was lying on the floor asking for a free kick. And it's just, teams have realised they can press us in our midfield defensive kind of transitional phase, and they can win a lot more balls through it. That's where we really, really need to work on. And again, I would expect Conte, his team and his backroom staff to be able to nail on, from a coach who likes to sit defensively and then transition out, for us to be so poor on the ball from a defensive midfield position, I think is laughable at times. But again, it's just how we've been for weeks and weeks. So I'm kind of numb to it at the moment.
Rich, let's come to you. In the 34th minute, Brighton got the equaliser, making it 1-1. Goal from the corner, Lewis dunk header, completely unmarked. I tweeted at the time, that is like Sunday League defending. Couldn't believe what I was doing.
Worse, mate. Worse. Primary school defending. Terrible. And then after that, Skippy's marking dunk. Their best header of the ball. Terrible. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I saw that.
We even have a set piece coach. How on earth in Premier League football can you leave a player like that unmarked completely?
And how dangerous it is in the box as well. How dangerous. And you just saw that they had 3 things they were either going to do from that corner. They had 2 people by the corner flag. It was they were going to obviously swing the ball in to the back post, which they did most of the time, or they were going to play it out between them, or they were going to push the ball out to the edge of the box and play it square for somebody to take a shot. That was their 3 plays. And the team did not react to that at all. Like after even before the goal. And then after the goal, I'm thinking, right, now somebody's obviously going to really mark Dunk out of the game in the box, make sure it's really tight. Oh my goodness, he had a couple of opportunities after he scored. And I just thought it was school, it was playground defending. I don't think Hugo's not dominant enough in his box. He's not able to really get the players into the positions they need to be. And then defensively in our box, I always worry. And I think the reason why that we're not killing off teams is because like Højbjerg's wanting us to play deeper and deeper because they don't trust the defenders at all. Like Dyer's obviously his form's gone off the cliff. Ramiro's obviously got one of those tackles in him that's going to get him sent off every game. And Longley, I'm not sure what he does for the team at the back, to be honest. So defensively, from that point, from when they scored, I was obviously they'd had a goal disallowed. They looked really dangerous. I think they had like 13 or 14 shots in the first half. Just really, really poor. And then obviously the second half, I think it was actually good for us that the managers got both sent off. I think that was one of the things that actually did change the game, because some of the players actually thought, right, yeah, there's a bit of passion going off in the on the bench. We need to actually do it on the pitch now, because before that there's none.
Ollie, let's come to you. In my opinion, and I've felt this for a number of years, I don't feel like Eric Dyer is good enough to take Tottenham to the next level. Now, many reports are coming out stating that Clement Lenglet, a permanent deal could be done for him at the club for around £14 million. Is he good enough for Spurs for you?
From what I've seen of him, he kind of does a job. I don't think I've seen him make many howlers in the same way that Dyer has. I think we could probably do better. But if it's just a case of getting a deal done and having some bodies just to fill in, I don't think he should start for us. I think he's decent cover option, but 14 million sounds like quite a lot considering he's not set the world on fire at Spurs. So I would like him if we could do him on a free. But 40 million sounds like a lot. Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I think Dyer has been diabolical, and I think it's time for him to go. The problem is Dyer seems very, very content to be at Spurs, and the fact that he went from defence, he went from centre back in the time at Spurs, centre back to right back to centre mid back to centre back. It's like he doesn't know what he is, and I actually think he's better off in midfield. I think during the Poch days when we had Dyer and Wanyama, Dyer Dembele, he was a boss. Like he really was excelling, winning tackles and being aggressive, and he played there for England. And I never really understood the change back to centre back because I never really saw that for him. But for a player to change position at his age is quite weird. Like you hear stories about players changing positions as kids, but you need to kind of know what you are. And I do think Dyer's got this kind of identity crisis. He's not a good defender. He has good qualities. I mean, Mourinho wanted to sign him for Man United as a centre mid, and he did decently there for us. So I just don't really understand, because he's not just not a good defender. I think time could be up for him, which is a shame, because there was a time on Conte where he was really looking like strong and like he had put those terrible mistakes behind him. And he was called. We were all saying, like, why has he not been called up for England? And then he suddenly has a chocker every week, and he never really put that behind him towards the end of last season. And then this season, he's just been terrible. But yeah, I think we can do better, and I think we need to get rid of Davis and Sanchez. I don't think he's good enough. I think all of you guys will agree with me. Expressions calls him the Colombian PS4. He just switches off. Like my whole PS4, and I think that's so true. Like he does. He just switches off. Did you see? It was I can't remember what game it was, but he just like stopped and let the player go past him. He fell over, didn't he? He had a little slip because the defense is just not good enough. And I want to see Bastoni. I want to see Skriniar. I want to see like a proper, because I really like Romero. I think he's great, but he can't do it on his own. Like Toby and Jan, they were two amazing defenders who really complemented each other. We had Ledley and Dawson. A defender is only as good as his partner, in my opinion. Like every amazing Premier League defense, like you got Diaz and Laporte when Laporte was playing. He's not playing at the moment, but you need to have a player alongside you who knows what he's doing. And Romero's just got a load of clowns with him. So if we can get someone like Bastoni, he's probably not going to come. But someone like a high caliber player like Gvardiol, he's probably not going to come either. But I'm just throwing names out there. Then we might be onto something. But to answer the original question, because I've got a massive tangent, I would not sign Langley for 14 million. If we can get it a little bit cheaper, because I don't think it's worth that, then yeah, get it done.
Tell you what, Ollie, I think Expressions will be absolutely delighted knowing that a Daily Mail journalist is listening to his content. They'd be delighted. Luke, let's come to you. Perisic, for me, when we signed him in the summer, I was so excited about signing him, thinking we'd sign a real leader and he was going to change games. What have you made of him? Because I'll be honest, sitting here in April with 8 games to go, he hasn't had the best season, has he?
No, definitely not. I was the same. I was looking at that because at the summer, if I remember rightly, him and Fraser Forster were like the first ones through the door, unless I'm completely confused. And, seeing that on free transfers and utilising that market so well, players that Antonio Conte knew, because everyone was calling out for this. Antonio Conte needs a full pre-season with this squad. He needs all the players in time so he can, all these things that pretty much every Spurs fan discussed on forums such as this. And to see his demise in a way is, is a little bit worrying, to be honest. He was brought in, as you say, to be a leader, to be a player that we can rely on, that's trustworthy. Bear in mind, okay, he was originally a left winger. Then under Antonio Conte, he gets transformed into this left wing back. Antonio Conte gets praised for it. And, when I watch him as a left wing back, the only reason he's playing today is because Ryan Sessegnon and Ben Davies both injured. Otherwise, I don't think he'd play. Because watching him defensively, there's a mistake every single game, involving him. I remember he came on as a sub a few weeks ago, and the first thing he did was gave away a foul in the defensive third. Watching him go forward is where I start to get excited, and I think, do you know what? He's going to be one of these prolific wing backs where he's going to stride forward. Okay, defensively he might not be the best, but what he will make up for in offensive play means that we'll see the best out of him. But again, I don't believe his crossing was as good today. He's still not scored a goal this season. The only thing that was his saving grace was probably his corner taking, which got us a few goals, through our genius set piece coach. But then even then, I haven't seen a lot from him in that part. So I think it's been very underwhelming, and I would not be surprised, that when Antonio Conte and his staff goes, he follows on, because I'm not fussed on it. And kind of jumping onto what Ollie said about Longley, we need drastically a left-footed centre-back, but Longley isn't the answer. And I think, as he said, £40 million is probably too much money, but it will get done, I believe. I think that's a classic Spurs Daniel Levy move, where we can utilise small amounts of money for a player that also knows this squad quite well. I think when we play with a back four next season, because I think we will, that's the missing piece. Romero concerns me still. I still don't think he is the player that, he should be. I still worry a lot about him defensively, about his aggressive nature. Some of the time on the ball, he missed passes. He's, kind of gets a little bit too much flair on him when he doesn't need that. He just needs to be that no-nonsense centre-back. But maybe with a high, top-quality left-footed centre-back, it might bring the best out of him. But Longley is 100% not the answer. I don't want to see a back two of Longley and Romero.
Luke, I know you've probably forgotten about the game at Southampton, but Perisic did get his first Spurs goal against Southampton a couple of weeks ago. We've deleted it from our minds, I know. Rich, let's come to you in the 38th minute. Sorry.
Oh, I just said thanks for reminding me.
Well, Rich, let's come to you. In the 38th minute, Solly March shot wide of the post. 43rd minute, Pedro Porro headed over the bar. What have you made of Pedro Porro's time at Spurs so far and his performance today?
Yeah, I think it's flashes of brilliance. Obviously, he's quick. He's dynamic through that transition, supports the attacks, which you'd want from that wing-back position. Defensively, sometimes he does get caught out of position. I think, again, some of these players that do come in, especially from Italian or Spanish leagues, do take a little bit of time to transition. He did. Those first couple of games, he looked quite poor. But I think we need to kind of really give him a little bit of time to adapt, develop those relationships and those combinations between him and Kulusevski or whoever it's going to be up that side. He does come inside a little bit and then create that extra man in midfield. I did notice that a little bit today when we were getting short in midfield. At the back, mate, I think there's bigger fish to fry at the back, really. I think Pedro Porro is one of those that's going to be a stalwart probably for next season. I think the centre-back combination, that needs to be massively changed, and also that left-back as well. It's defensively, we look all over the place. I think our defence is a laughing stock, really. It's no real confidence there. Pedro Porro has obviously come into this team, and then we've expected the team to be transformed, but we've still got the same kind of peripheral of players that just not good enough. And going back to Ollie's point, I think if our aspirations are to win things in this league and to push on to fourth and above, we need to be acquiring players that are of that ilk, not like players like Longley that's just going to be around the team because they're cheap. Because he is, I don't believe he's good enough to be a top six player at all. I don't see what he gives us, whether he gives us a solid base, whether he's strong in the air, whether he's composed on the ball, whether he makes good decisions, whether he can make a long pass. I don't see any of those. I don't see anything that he adds to the team. And we need, if the players aren't good enough next season, we need to get rid of them. Get rid of all the players that we've just been hanging on for, because we had a miracle season last season where we got into the top four. Luckily, we're not going to this season. I don't feel we're not going to this season because we've hung on to players like the Sanchez's of this world, the Dyers of this world. If they're not good enough, they need to leave, and we need to have high quality players that we can rely on, and they are consistent performers.
For half-time, it was 1-1. There were some boos at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. In the 52nd minute, Perisic forced a good save from Steele. 3 minutes later, Brighton had another goal disallowed. McAllister handball. Ollie, was that a clear-cut handball?
I don't think it was clear, but I don't think it was clear cut. I've watched it back a few times. Some people say it hit his sleeve, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was a stonewall as the penalty at the end. I think the penalty at the end was a slam dunk penalty. I think they should have had that. But as Luke said, the first two decisions, whereas they were kind of like, fine margins, I don't think anyone could say that's a handball. But I did just see that the Zerbies come on and said they should have won the game, and there might be some merit to that. I think we did get very, very lucky today. But yeah, we'll have to see when they do the Sky Sports review of the decisions with the Dermot Gallagher and see what he says. But yeah, I think I definitely don't think it was clear cut, the first one.
What do you think of Stuart Atwell's performance today as referee?
Yeah, not great. It was pretty shambolic. Like, you can't say that he had control of the game. The fact that team manager's been sent off. You got two disallowed goals. The penalty at the end, yeah, he's really had a mare there. VAR has just been absolutely shocking this season. I think the performance of VAR has been bad enough to scrap the whole thing altogether. I think the fact people are forgetting to draw offside lines and all sorts. I think it's been an absolute shambles. He didn't have the best game today. Not much control. And
Ollie, do you think the consistency has been a real problem with the refereeing as well? I see, like even today, some of the fouls, there were a clear yellow card, like leaving the foot in, like stamping, like some of those decisions, like referees are just like letting them go. And even in some of the like the top 2, top 4 teams when they're playing each other, they're letting those decisions go for 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden like throwing the cards out. I think the refereeing consistently has not happened across the board this season. So when you turn up for a game, you don't know who you've got as a referee, and are they going to be lenient and want to let the game flow, or are they just going to be throwing yellow cards out left, right, and centre? I think it's really spoiled some of the games.
Yeah, I think the problem with it is that there's no definitive handball. What is a handball? What is an offside? There's no margin for error with the offside, and you can be an armpit offside. You can be, we need to have this definitive answer. What is a handball? Is it intentional? Is it not? Like what we had with Sissoko in the Champions League final. Are those handballs allowed? Are they not? If somebody makes an intentional movement with his hand to the ball, is that a handball? If he meant it or not? With the fouls, is a penalty? Would you give the same foul in the box that you would give outside of the box? Because I think the referees are kind of treading around eggshells a bit with those kind of decisions, where they're kind of like, oh, I don't want to, affect the game too much by making a big call. I think everybody's kind of just, a bit scared to make a big call at the moment. But I think, Howard Webb seems to be making a few big changes, and anybody who messes up kind of is getting a bit of a pasting. I know Mike Dean, we don't know if he's going to referee again in VAR. So yeah, it seems like there's going to be changes, and I think you can definitely bet that at the end of the season there'll be a bit of a review. But yeah, honestly, that VAR is just absolute shambles. I would just suck it off, because it was supposed to help us, and if it's not helping us, if people are still if they're still outcried, then just knock it on the head.
I'm not sure Mike Dean coming back is the answer. Luke, let's come to you. In the 58th minute, De Zerbi and Stellini were both issued with red cards. Now, I don't know whether you noticed, but before the game, they were having a heated argument then. It clearly started before the match. Talk us through that incident in the 58th minute.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the start of the game, from what I was watching, the camera kind of cut to De Zerbi pointing, lots of finger pointing at Stellini. So I've no idea. I still haven't seen what the reason for that was or why that happened. But again, I kind of missed the majority of what happened with the sending off, because the part in which I saw, Stellini was stood in his technical area, and it was both sets of, coaching staff kind of being held off each other. At one point, the players had to come over and try and separate them as well. So it's going to be really interesting to find out, unless anybody knows exactly the reasons behind it is. Now, what I heard from the broadcast I was listening to was that they were both sent off for something to do with their technical areas, constantly being outside of their technical areas. But if you're going to start sending people off for that, I can imagine there's one manager that gets sent off every single week.
Yeah, I think Luke. I think it was not controlling their technical staff. That's what they said.
Okay.
That because both managers didn't control their technical staff, both managers got sent off.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's. I saw a very clear game plan from De Zerbi from the start of this game. And someone said it in the comments actually as well, and it's kind of put me off him a little bit in terms of that. That he had a very clear game plan. His players had a very clear game plan from the start, and it was to try and rough us up as much as possible, get into the Spurs' heads because they know how weak they are as much as possible. You saw it from Lewis Dunk. Every time Harry Kane went down or anybody went down, he was shouting at them, pointing, bending over. But yet when he was going down, there was none of that from our players. So I think it was a very clear plan. And yeah, he's put me off him a little bit from his poor kind of ability to restrain himself in certain areas.
But don't we need to be like that though, Luke? A little bit more aggressive, because even when you go back to the Jose Mourinho days of him saying to the whole squad that they need to play or be like a bunch of C's. You know, don't we need to be more aggressive as a team?
We do, yeah. But then I was expecting that under Antonio Conte, and I was expecting that with, you know, when Christian Romero came in and we brought in Richarlison and other players like that who really have that ability to wind people up. And we saw it at times. You know, we saw it when Richarlison, you know, was doing keeping ups against Nottingham Forest and winding people up. And I thought, you know, there was a lot of tweets that I put out, you know, saying that I'm not sure what language I can use, so I won't use the full one. But, you know, what kind of housery, you know, team we are, and, you know, how we can be that team that completely annoys every other team and winds everybody up. But we never, that kind of died off, just like everything else under Conte. It really just died, you know, went nowhere. So maybe we should be, yeah. And maybe I wouldn't be annoyed if it was us, but there was a very clear angle and narrative to their game today.
It just comes to you in the 60. Oh, let me just rewind a little bit. Straight after that, that is when the Spurs fans started singing Pochettino's name, and then 5 minutes later, Harry Kane had a shot, went over the bar. A minute later, Kulusevski shot just past the post. After 69 minutes, a cross to Veltman, completely unmarked again. He headed wide. Now, we saw exactly what went wrong in the first half by conceding the goal. It happened again.
What can I say? What can I say? It's yeah, Spursy, right? Jeez, it's just you're in the stadium today, you guys, and it's just so frustrating, isn't it? So frustrating that it's like happens every game.
It was quiet. It was a different mood today, Rich. I must say, it was a really different mood. Very, very quiet.
And I think those moments where if it's not the players like getting involved, then the staff getting involved with each other, I think you need to have something like, you need to have some fire in the belly because you need to pull some of these results out of the fire sometimes. And today we won when we literally shouldn't have. And in the last couple of weeks, we've thrown results away. Like we threw the game away against Southampton, we threw it away against Everton. Today, I think it was our turn to have a little bit more, a lot of luck, and just get that result. But the players need to look at themselves, and the management team need to look at themselves and go, it's just not good enough. It's not. They're backing off the play. They're not pressing. The players are coming on the pitch and not giving it all. And when I mean that, I don't mean like Lucas Moura just flying into every kind of challenge and getting sent off. I mean kind of really showing that you want to wear that shirt and wear it with pride and show the fans that you want to have an impact when you come off the bench. And I'm not saying the players didn't today, but I just saw lazy play. Like there was at one stage when I think Brighton had the ball and we were just like very passive, standing still. Like, and then the crowd is just going, what are we actually watching here? And I felt like the fans as well, I felt Brighton were in the ascendancy and they were going to score. So, which is really frustrating.
Rich, what do you think of De Zerbi? What do you think of De Zerbi? Would you take him at Tottenham?
I don't know. It's clearly, tactically, with the players he's got, he's worked wonders with some of those players. Like Sonny March looks a completely different player under him. I think he gets the best out of the players. He's got a better attacking system. He utilises the ball a lot better. Whether he can make that transition into having a better, more able group of players, he could elevate himself into that position of taking us forwards. That's what we need to have. The next appointment, the next players we have, they need to take us to winning those trophies, to be consistently not just in the top four, but pushing towards challenging for the Premiership. And we're miles off that. We're absolutely miles off that. I was thinking today, watching the game, how boring the actual play was. How boring it was. How like other fans used to under Pochettino go, yeah, Tottenham's our second team. Love watching Spurs play. Always attacking. Eriksen, player that we've never replaced. What I always go on about is a missing part of the team. That is for the summer. That is key. That is key. An Eriksen kind of player. When we had Eriksen, when we had Ali, when it's Son, Kane, those kind of players in the team, exciting. Like it got the fans off the seats. The fans didn't sit down because it was so exciting, and because it's just gone backwards. But so boring. Fans are getting disengaged with the play as well. They don't know what they're going to turn up and watch. And like I say, after they scored and going into the second half, I was going, is it going to be the Spurs team that scores in the second half turn up, or are we just going to be a team that now just hopefully gets that opportunity that Sonny's going to take, or Kane's going to have the opportunity and we're going to score and win 2-1. But those kind of games, the style of football is so boring. It's terrible.
Well, as we've already mentioned, after 78 minutes, Tottenham made a sub. Kulusevski coming off, Danjuma coming on. Some rare Premier League minutes for Danjuma. Just a minute later, Harry Kane scored Tottenham's winning goal. Højbjerg with some great work, pulled it back for Harry Kane. Harry Kane does what Harry Kane does and puts it in the back of the net. Ollie, what did you make of the goal? And I've got to ask you, I know you'll probably be reporting on this through the Daily Mail, and of course, various other media outlets will be reporting on it during the summer. Do you think he's still going to be a Spurs player at the start of next season?
I'll deal with the goal first. It's a great goal. Very well worked. Højbjerg just playing that little slip pass, and Kane, first time shot, doing what H does, bailing us out time and time again. But I think it's going to approach the point where he can't continue to bail us out. I would be amazed if Harry Kane was still a Tottenham player this summer. If you were Harry Kane and you had offers from Man United this summer, which you absolutely will have, we know that they're interested in their lining up a bid. You would take it, I think. Maybe not from Bayern Munich. I think he's very keen to stay in the Premier League, but his option is stay at Spurs or go to United, because City have got Cowlin. I think Liverpool is potentially an option, but considering their kind of plight, I don't think you'd want to go there. I think United are on a bit of an upwards trajectory under Ten Hag, where they could probably win trophies. But yeah, I would be amazed if Kane stayed, because there is no direction at the club. There's such a feeling of negativity. Last season we were worried that he was going to leave, and we were kind of on an upwards curve under Conte, and even then we were kind of worried. It looked like touch and go whether he would stay. He ended up staying, and I can't see one reason why he'd stay. The only way I think he stays, it depends on the new manager. If it's Nagelsmann, and if we get top four, then maybe they have a little chat. But then it's a case of whether he signs a new deal or whether he just has one last dance with us and leaves on a free. But I can't see Levy, the businessman that he is, allowing someone like Harry Kane to leave on a free transfer. I think it would be lunacy personally. I would rather let him go now, take the 100 mil, shake his hand and say good luck, and you deserve it, because he really does. He deserves a big move. And to be honest, I think he would do well at United. I hate saying that, I hate admitting that, but I think he would. I think he definitely would be in line for more trophies. It's not a guarantee. He could go to United and then they could not win a trophy, and he could be the curse that United don't want. I personally feel that if he signs a new deal, then if we get Nagelsmann, and if there's a real push under Scott Munn, who I think is a good move for the club, then he could do something. I mean, I think we're only likely to win a trophy with Kane. If we get rid of him, we go back to square one. So he faces a really, really big decision. But yeah, if United come calling and Levy's willing to sell, then you'd have to say he probably goes.
What's your prediction on the Harry Kane situation, Luke? Because when you look at it, top goal scorer at Tottenham Hotspur, top goal scorer all time for England. You know, he hasn't won any trophies whatsoever. If you were Harry Kane's mate, his brother or his dad, what would you be saying to him? And what manager do you think that could get him to stay at Spurs?
So I think it's interesting because I know Rich at the start of the show said, you know, being a top athlete and being in that 1% and striving for those goals and those golds and, you know, in whichever angle of sport that you're in is the epitome of that. And you want to always get to that. I'm really interested to know, and Richard can answer this at some point, but is he, becoming the all-time Premier League goal scorer, potentially, the all-time Spurs goal scorer, the all-time England goal scorer, as good as that, or are team accolades as important? Because I still believe that Harry Kane could look back on his career not winning a team trophy, but seeing his name in the history books for however long that might sit. I don't know if anyone could ever, if he does get higher than more than Alan Shearer, if anybody could ever get that, due to how quickly players move in football. But so I'd be interested in that. But do I think he stays? I think the only way that he only ever goes to United, I think, in terms of the teams that could go for him. I don't think he would go abroad. And I believe the only way he would go to United would be if, someone like the Qataris purchase Manchester United. They would want to make a marquee signing under their new ownership. And I believe that Harry Kane would be that marquee signing. And to kind of answer the last question, I don't think Daniel Levy lets him go on a free, and I don't think Harry Kane goes on a free either. The only kind of managers that could probably keep him maybe Nagelsmann, maybe a Mauricio Pochettino, potentially just due to their relationship. I don't think Harry Kane would go on a free either. I don't think he would want to, cut his legacy like that. But that I haven't really answered the question too much. But I see him staying. I do see him staying. Yeah, let's answer that.
Yeah, Rich, do you want to come in on that point, because it's a weird one for me. I think if I was Harry Kane, I would probably think that my time's probably up because I want to win a team trophy. Personally, I'm hoping that he's going to stay, but is he going to have enough, Rich, of not winning any team trophies for this amount of time at the club?
That's a great question, Luke. I think it depends on what drives him for the future, and does he think that he's got the backing of the club, and the club are going to sell him this project that's going to incorporate him, that's going to incorporate some of the kind of attacking flair players that are going to enable him to break Alan Shearer's record at Spurs, but also get him very close, if not winning the Premier League or trophy at Spurs. And if not, obviously, is his heart really with Spurs? Does he see that he wants to kind of go somewhere else and challenge himself professionally? Because I think sometimes as a professional athlete, emotionally you get really attached to the club and the project, and I'm just not sure. I don't know enough about what kind of really does drive Harry at the moment. Obviously, there was a point of him going. To Man City, and like the other boys, I think United probably is the only destination.
Sorry, Richard, would you be happy if you like, let's say hypothetically, right? You only ever won. I know this sounds strange coming from me, right? But if you only ever won a gold medal, but in a team event, and you struggled to ever win in an individual event, or would you rather won an individual event and not one in that team event?
I can answer that because I went to the Paralympics in a winter sport, ice hockey, and then we went to the games in 2006 and bums, and then I have obviously had all my success on the track over the 200 meters. So yeah, I you know what, I was really frustrated within the team that I played because they weren't as committed. They didn't have the so-called talent that I had. They didn't have the desire to win things. And then individually, obviously, I've been very successful, even though I had a great team around me that have supported me. Harry Kane, it is different because if I was in Harry Kane's shoes, I think I would. When you've been in a team for so long, you really institutionalise with the lack of winning trophies. And I think that's his problem. He's really institutionalised now. And even down to some of the England results, I think he's like obviously missing that penalty against France. I just think he's been like tarnished with that kind of like not winning things, where going to another team, and I definitely don't want him to go. I think he should stay. I think his heart's with Spurs, but I think it's one of those where he could be really influenced with the team around him. Come on, Harry. I think staying in the Premier League, you still can break Alan Shearer's record, but how about going to a team where you could actually win the Premier League and really create that legacy as being the best player that's ever played in the Premier League's history? I think that's what he's looking for. He's wanting to come out of his career going, actually, I've done the best I can. At Spurs at the moment, his career could kind of just peter off, and actually not get anywhere near Alan Shearer's record because we'll struggle.
There is nothing I want to see more than Harry Kane lifting a trophy with Tottenham down the high road.
Yeah,
It'd be amazing.
Sure. It'd be awesome.
Ollie, let's come to you. A couple of final subjects before we go. On Friday, the club announced, we're delighted to announce the appointment of Scott Munn as Chief Football Officer. Scott will be joining the club's board and will take charge of all footballing departments. What do you make of this appointment, particularly when we already have Chairman Daniel Levy? We've got Fabio Prafti, who, of course, is not working at the club at the moment. We've also got Greta Steenston. Now Scott Munn has come into the equation. Who, in your opinion, is in charge of transfers and who is in charge of the manager search?
As I understand it, it's Scott Munn and Daniel Levy in charge of transfers. I think Scott Munn's going to be Daniel Levy's number 2. So he's literally his lieutenant, and I think those two are going to be working on transfers alongside the board and Paratici if he comes back. But if Paratici does come back, and I don't think he will, I don't think he does come back, he would be reporting to Scott Munn. But I think it's a real change of tack. I think it's a strategic change. I know the club have been working on assessing how they go about their football operations for the last 6 months, and this is a real kind of sea change in how they do things. I think it's a kind of similar way to the way United and Liverpool do things, and the way that they look at their transfers and look for players. So it's potentially an exciting one. Will it work, or will it be the same disastrous director of football we've had in the past? Hopefully not. But I think, if you look at Scott's background, he's worked in a real multitude of sports. He's done the Olympics, he's done rugby league, AFL in Australia. He's worked with the City Group, the Man City Group across the world. So he's had a real variety of experience. And he seems like a guy who's a businessman and a sportsman and a football man. So yeah, it sounds like quite a positive step, but you can't really trust Enoch or Levy to get things right. So we have to sort of have to have a jury's out attitude with this one. But it seems like they're kind of going away from the traditional European director of football who just brings in players from his country and just sort of throws a load of cash at the wall and see what happens. So hopefully it will be a kind of a group process where we all get together in a transfer panel and look at players from a more analytical approach. And let's hope that begins this summer, because this team needs real work.
Luke, let's come to you on the same subject. What do you make of this appointment of Scott Munn? And I feel like I've said this ever since Pochettino left, really, in the club decisions that have been made since 2019. Sacking Pochettino for one, sacking Jose Mourinho 6 days before a cup final. This whole thing now of Antonio Conte, and of course before that, waiting 72 days for a manager. We appoint Nuno Espirito Santo. There seems to be a lot of decisions that were clearly wrong. Spurs need to get it right. And I feel like I've said this before. Spurs need to get it right this time. What's going to be different this time?
Well, who knows what's going to be different, right? This could all be, a very clever approach from Levy to, distance himself from the negativity in which is surrounding him at the moment. Because I'll take my point of view. So I'm not Enoch out, Levy out, but I'm also not Enoch in either. What I dislike at the moment is Levy's constant, stepping in and trying to get too involved in a subject in which I don't believe he's very good at, and that's making footballing decisions. I'm more than happy with how the club is run financially. I'm more than happy with some of the financial deals that are being struck, and I believe that is, where his where he is best placed for the football club. And if he is to step aside from footballing activities, whether that happens or not, that would be my ideal. I would be more than happy with Spurs if they brought in somebody to replace him in terms of footballing duties, and he just remained, as a business sense. Whether that will happen, I don't know, and it could all be smoke and mirrors and just a way to kind of, get a little bit of attention away from him. But if that happens again, then a lot more people will turn.
Now, last question for you. Of course, we're next in Premier League action next Saturday here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Bournemouth. Now, they won against Leicester today, 1-0. Their results, their last 6 results, they lost 3-2 against Arsenal, won against Liverpool 1-0, lost against Aston Villa 3-0, won against Fulham 2-1, lost against Brighton 2-0, and won today against Leicester. So their results, their last 6, lost 1, lost 1, lost 1. Rich, let's start with you. Score prediction for next week's Bournemouth game.
I think it's going to be another physical game, I think. They're going to try and put a lot of players behind the ball and expect us to break them down, and then expect themselves to score off a free kick or a set play or a breakaway. And then try to utilise our frailties at the back. I think we'll win. I think it might be 3-1. I think we'll score a couple of goals. I think we'll some of the frailties of the past because of Bournemouth not being a fantastic team, especially away from home. You look, their away record's very poor. So yeah, 3-1. And then on to the next game, really. Obviously, you take one game at a time, but we'll have more challenging games in the run-in for sure. Yeah. I think the Bournemouth game's one of those games where we need to build confidence into the last 7 or 8 games. Today, we definitely didn't because we got away with one. Next weekend, we need to win well, so 3-1.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. Ollie, what are you going for?
I'm also inclined to go for 2-1, either that or 1-0. I think it will be a nervy one similar to today. I think Bournemouth are a team who we all kind of thought would be stuck in the relegation zone most of the season. They've actually surprised us a lot. They beat Liverpool 1-0. They ran Arsenal, their leaders, pretty close, 3-2. So they can kind of hold their own, and I think they'll come to Spurs feeling quite upbeat and, hopeful of a little upset. They know they can get under our skin. They know that they can create chances. I think any team that comes to Spurs knows we'll get at them. So we need to be really careful about that. And they're kind of fighting for their life. They are fighting for their lives. So it will be a real test. But yeah, as Rich says, it's a must win, and we must win well. We need to send a message to Liverpool, to Newcastle, to United. I don't think we will. I think it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, 2-1.
Luke, what are you going for?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I think we'll play well. I think we'll keep this positive momentum of this win because it was a very big win today. And I think we'll win 2-0.
Well, Luke, thanks so much for joining us this evening on the podcast for the very first time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Please tell everyone where they can find you on social media and tell us all about your podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much once again for having me on. I really do appreciate it. You can find us at Park Lane Podcast on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. We do a show every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. At Park Lane Podcast on YouTube. So we're just a small channel, but if you're interested and you want to talk about Spurs, we try and have a laugh, joke, and discuss everything that happens. So we'd really appreciate it if people came. If you don't, it's also not a bother either. So I really do appreciate it. Thanks again, Chris.
Well, there's a lot of time during this season. We all need a laugh and a joke. So head over to Luke's podcast. Rich, it's been a pleasure having you back. Tell everyone where they can find you and about your event again.
Yeah. Obviously, people know where to find me, either Marathon Champ on Twitter or obviously Instagram, all over that. So I've got an event in June the 18th, in Nottingham. So if you're around Nottingham or East Midlands or want to travel, please come down. Fully inclusive event. If you don't run, it's not a running event. It's just a fully inclusive event. We just try to have a lot of fun. Sport is about getting people together and really embracing what sport's really about smiling and enjoying the whole event and atmosphere. So yeah, cheers for your support as always, Chris. It's been great to be on with Luke and Ollie. Everybody that's obviously listening today, do like and subscribe as well. So I think it's really important to support Chris and all his great content, because it's all part of the journey.
Thank you, Richard. And Ollie, pleasure having you back. Tell everyone where they can find you and what to expect in the next couple of weeks from you and the Daily Mail.
Oh, you can expect lots of drama as the Tottenham season unfolds, and I'll probably be forced to write about it, which is, yeah, anytime there's a Spurs feature, they just shove it on my desk, and I'm like, oh god, I've got to relive it all over again. Yeah, you can find me at Ollie Gamp at Twitter, which I'm always posting my moans. And I'm also going to do a shameless plug. I'm currently writing a book, which is actually about my dad's podcast. So my dad runs a podcast called The Company Doctor. It's good for anybody. It's about interviews, networking, how to get a pay rise, stuff like that. Just give that a listen. That's on Spotify, The Company Doctor, and I'm going to be writing a book based on the podcast. Keep your eyes peeled on that.
Well, the very best of luck with that. Rich, Ollie, Luke, thanks so much for joining me this evening to talk about Tottenham's 2-1 victory today at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Brighton. Let's hope that next week when we're back on the podcast, we're talking about another win against Bournemouth. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until the next one, come on, you Spurs.